But first, here's my take. Can Arab countries be real democracies? Well, one of them, Tunisia, just did well on a big test. More than 20 years ago, the scholar Samuel Huntington established his famous two-turnover test for fledgling democracies. He argued that a country can only be said to be a consolidated democracy when there have been two peaceful transitions of power. Tunisia passed Huntington's test after last weekend's election, when for the second time, a ruling establishment agreed to hand over power. Tunisia's relative success is in marked contrast to the abysmal failure of Egypt, the Arab world's largest and once most influential country. As in Tunisia, Egyptians also overthrew a dictator 3 years ago. But after Egypt's brief experiment with democracy, in which the Muslim Brotherhood was elected and then abused its authority, today the country is ruled by a repressive dictatorship. I recently asked a secular liberal Egyptian from Cairo, who was involved in the uprising against Hosni Mubarak, whether the current regime feels like a return of the old order. Oh no, he said. This one is far more brutal, repressive, and cynical than Mubarak's. Why did Tunisia succeed where Egypt failed? Analysts of the two countries have offered lots of answers, but the most common one is that Tunisia's Islamists were just better than Egypt's. In both countries, Islamist parties won the first election. But as many have pointed out, Tunisia's Ennahda party, which is a rough equivalent of Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood, sought to share power while their Egyptian brethren did not. Now, Tariq Masood, the author of a fascinating new book on Islamists and elections entitled Counting Islam, suggests that Tunisia's success and Egypt's failure had less to do with the quality of its Islamists than with deep differences in those countries' political environments. Tunisia is more developed, more urban, more literate, and more globalized than Egypt. It has a more diverse civil society than Egypt, stronger labor unions, civic associations, professional groups, and so there was relative parity between Islamists and their opponents. Tunisia's Islamic party shared power, in other words, not because it was nicer than the Muslim Brotherhood, but because it had to. Tunisia had more of the preconditions that have historically helped strengthen democracy than did Egypt. Of course, Tunisia faces many economic challenges. Its youth unemployment rate is around 30%. The government is battling Islamist militants at home, and recent reports have suggested that the Arab world's only democracy is also its biggest exporter of fighters to join ISIS, though this may be because Tunisia is relatively open and not a closed police state like Egypt. But Tunisia's relative success does suggest there is nothing inherent in Islam or Arab society that makes it impossible for democracy to take root there. You need favorable economic and political conditions for sure, in the Arab world as elsewhere. You need good leadership, and you probably need some luck.